I'm here with Steve Mululu. I don't know what to call the owner of what, because he's just got so multiple businesses, multiple streams of income. I knew Steve, obviously, I think for the past 16 years now.
That's right.
Since around 2007, from around 2007, when I was started training at the gym in Morningside. He was a personal trainer at that time. I first joined the gym in Morningside. Obviously, we're always looking for that good body that we all wanted. And when I joined the gym, there was this personal trainer called Steve Mululu, Mululu X now, who always had the charisma, and there were people around him who wanted to train with him at the gym. And you found that he attracted the best clients in the gym because of what he brought in. But even if you were not a client of Steve Mululu, he had the passion that if you were not doing something proper or if you could improve, he would come to you and guide you in terms of how to train. Take us through this journey, Steve. My understanding is that you were born in Kenya and then you came to South Africa. And that's how we then met when you were doing the personal training.
No, 100%. I mean, I say hello to the viewers, and Mda, thanks for having me on your show. I met him when I was a personal trainer at one of the big chain international fitness branches at Morningside over 16 years ago. And as he's clearly said, I started my journey in this world in Kenya 55 years ago, and I moved to South Africa because I wanted a better life. But basically, I was born in a small little village in the western part of Kenya. I'm a part of a big family. My father is a polygamist. He's got 5 wives. And he's one of those people that when it comes to the Bible, he only read one verse that says, multiply, and he was a big believer in having the number of kids, because traditionally your wealth was defined by the number of working hands that you have, and having boys automatically it meant that he has free labor. And that wasn't the kind of life that I wanted for me.
Sure. And then, so when did you start going into the training? Because obviously you look at me and I'm challenged in as much as I think you used to tell all the personal trainers in the gym that, guys, you must always make sure that your body is your business card so that people aspire to look like you. And I know there are many people who aspire to look like you, but you never told them that a big portion of how you look is from the genes, from your dad who had the foresight. So when did you decide that with all the gifts you're given physically, that you would take it further into training?
I think in a way, I can't compare myself with you, because we do training for two different things. A majority of people that go into gym, they go there more for recreation purposes. For me, I go to gym as my source of income. So how I look determines a lot how successful I'm going to be in that environment. Gym environment is a vanity environment. You know, people see you, and either people see you and they want to look like you, or people see you, they don't want to look like you. So as you clearly said there, in that business, my body is my business card. I can't tell somebody I'm going to help them when they look at me and I look worse than they are. So automatically, I had to keep in shape. I had to be in shape. I live all my life. I've always lived in the gym. So it's totally different. So I set when I train people, I'd always set people's goals based on where they are and where they want to be. And that becomes the blueprint of the whole exercise.
Definitely. So if you look at success, I'm probably not exaggerating to say you were probably one of the most successful personal trainers in there. If there were top 3 to 5 things you could ascribe your success there, because we always talk about even work environment, that you can be good in what you're doing, but sometimes it's about the attitude that you bring into the place. And here I'll make an example just to emphasize my point. In the area that I stay in, there's a boom gate, but it's not a gated community. It's just a boom gate, and it's manned by 3 guys. And normally I run through the areas. It's a manual boom gate. When I run through the area, 2 of the security guards, each time you come running, they just leave the boom for you and you go through. They are that friendly. All 3 of them are friendly, but these 2 go the extra mile. There's a 3rd one, he's also friendly, but as you come in, he's not going to bother to leave that. You have to fit in through the small space to run through. And I tell my kids that this is exactly what they mean about attitude at work. So if you had to link it to your success as a personal trainer when you're there, how do you ascribe it to?
We're talking about business principles, but I think I'll negate a little bit and go back. I think growing up in Kenya, it's one of those environments you either have it or you don't. You know, it's only when I came to South Africa for the first time I realized that you can get free medical, you can go to the hospital and you just have to show up there and you have access to doctors, you have access to things like x-rays, you can be in ICU. In Kenya there's nothing like that. It for the first time where you have social grants, you know, for people that don't work. So I learned to fend for myself very early. I knew very well that, and especially when I moved here, I knew I can only rely on me. So if I don't build people around me that are going to feed into my business, automatically the minute one person goes, I'm going to be in trouble. So I started learning that when I started working on that flow, because initially before even I went into personal training, I went to that gym and for 3 months I was working for free. And I was working from 5 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. I was always the first person to be in the gym and always the last person. My job was purely to make sure that I talk when the general manager asked me, what are you going to do? You know, we're not going to be paid. I said, it's fine. So my job was always to make sure that the floor is clean. I used to pack and unpack weights. To make sure that I know everybody's schedule, I know what time they come in, what their names are, what they're training. And it reached a point, because at that point I didn't have money at all, it reached a point where some people, it became very regular. Slings is coming this morning, I'm going to help him train legs. When he eats breakfast, he buys me breakfast. And then Mdu is going to come in, he's going to do back at lunchtime. He comes in, I've already set his station, I help him. He comes down, he says, let's eat lunch. Somebody else is going to come in at 3, we do shoulders, I help him to do that when he buys a smoothie. So it became, I started building these people without expecting anything. I started treating them like customers before they became customers. So when I was given that opportunity to become a trainer, I already had people that were already asking me, when can I pay you? But I was like, you can't pay me, kick me out of here. I'm not allowed to. I'm just volunteering my time because I have nothing else to do. And that's how I started building that business base.
Yeah, that's true. I think there was that foresight and the vision in you already. So if I were to check Steve, I know when I did my first VEC job, I was doing articles in this firm, and the outgoing CEO now of a First Rand Bank, he was the manager on the job, Alan Pullinger, probably doesn't remember me. And when he had to write a review and describe me, he said, quiet but gets around. And when I look back and I look at his success at First Rand, you can see this is a person who can read people quite quickly and understand who they are, because that description still applies to me even now. So if someone you were to describe in one sentence who is Steve Mululu, what would you say?
I would just say, I never hear no. I never hear no. I will always listen to my yes, as I've told you there. And I think I like the description your former boss used on you, because I always tell people I'm silent thunder. I'm absent but I'm present. Constantly. My thing is, if I meet someone or I'm in contact with someone, I have any kind of dealing with somebody, I have to make an impression on that person. They should not forget me. I have to do something or say something that constantly, it can be a reference point for them to constantly keep on remembering me.
Sure. How many years did you spend at the Virgin Active as a personal trainer?
I worked there for 12 years.
For 12 years. So as you built up your client base, when did you start having a plan to say, this is now, I'm going to move to the next level and become a gym owner?
I've always wanted more. And I think one thing we always underestimate as human beings, we forget that the point of life is to grow. We all want growth, and I came here because I wanted to grow. I left the village to come to the city because I wanted to grow. I left my first job when I looked at it and I saw no growth, because I saw the people. When I went to the city, the first job I was exposed to was the Kenyan Cereal Board, and because I don't have the kind of education they want a boy from the village, my automatic position was to be a packer, and that simply means the trucks come in loaded with the maize or any kind of grains. They give you a white overall. You take a sack, put it on your head, you walk next to because everything was still being done very manually. You walk next to the truck, there are guys on the truck, they take a sack of beans or a sack of maize, they take 2-3 of those, they put it on your back, and you walk into the store and pack it. And I looked at the guys that were there. There were a lot of old people that were very much stooped, and asked them, how long have you been here? They said we got here even when we were younger than you. And at that point, I realized if I do this, I'm going to be stuck. I took off my overall and I left.
You left.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't do any of that. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew this is not what I want for my life.
For you. Yeah. So when you listen to Robert Cialdini, he talks about the 7 laws of influence. One of them is establishing yourself as an authority. The people that will benefit from this, there are many personal trainers now who want to go on to be entrepreneurs. So if you are encouraging personal trainers out there to see how do you differentiate yourself, grow the business and do other things. I remember you used to write even articles whilst you were still a personal trainer, and I mean the way you write, I think if you were to share with the world, I hope there's a book coming, but the way you wrote, you talk about things that we didn't understand, sagittal plane and all those things. How would you encourage upcoming personal trainers who are ambitious?
I mean, the first thing is you have to have a very strong why. I've seen a lot of personal trainers that start their own business for the wrong reason. And the most common one is, I hate working for someone. I hate working for these big chains, and let's say I'm going to start my own. Or they say, I don't want to pay rent, I want to pay all those reasons. In most cases, those are always the wrong reason. But if I had to talk to a personal trainer now, the first thing is, I'll say, first you have to identify who you want to serve. Who is your ideal customer? Because you have to create your ideal business. You have to have an avatar of who your customer is. Secondly, you have to ascertain, do your market research, do your survey and find out, is there a market for whatever service that you're trying to offer? Thirdly, will those people afford it? And fourthly, are you in a position to service them? Yeah. Now, if those 4 things fall into play, and then you have number 5, you have a way to deliver it. And in the very beginning, the only tool you have, the only asset, your only delivery system is you. You're the main asset in your business. You're the main investment. If you're going to get money from anywhere, whatever it is that you want, what you're putting down as collateral is who? It's you.
Exactly.
It's you, your expertise in terms of training, your expertise in your resilience in terms of hard work, your mental resilience, and all those things. Now, the minute you have that, then you can venture. And you don't have to go big. You can start as easy as the first thing after you've done all those, the current customers that you have, where you are, whatever facility that you're working from, if it's somebody's gym where you're paying rent, first and foremost, you have to change the ratio of your spending to your savings. And what I always say, you're going to have to, if you can, and I know it's hard, but if you can, you have to do a ratio of 60-40, where you save 60% and you spend, you survive on 40, because you have to make hard choices if that's going to happen. Now, when you're in a position to be able, you have enough to survive for at least 3 to 6 months, then you can take that risk. Because it has to be a calculated risk. I don't think it's clever just to leave your job and then straight away keep on thinking. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, hope is not a strategy. Yeah, definitely. So as you know, in this show or the podcast, we normally talk to leaders who are practicing active citizenship, and I think that's what you do. It's the love of people. Just talk about your love for people, which could be a differentiator. Because at the end of the day, like you say, sometimes training is about vanity. So you could be sitting there training someone and you think, sure, there's not much hope here, and you have to encourage the person and want to get the result. How does the love for people fit in anything you do, but even in the space of training?
Human psychology plays a very big role. You have to understand people. In fact, you can't love people if you don't understand them.
Yes.
You really have to understand people, because by understanding people, you understand why they do certain things.
Yes.
You understand. I remember there were times in Morningside where people used to call me names. I remember there was a day a guy came in one day and he was very annoyed and he said, I miss the old days, and I didn't understand what he was saying. I said, what do you mean like that? Because during old days, you won't be in here training our women, you'll be at my house watching my car. You know? Yeah. But so if I didn't understand, that maybe he was going through a very hard time or any of those, I could have reacted.
Yes. Yes.
And in doing that, I could have destroyed my business, because I would have been seen as the crazy person. That is attacking person. But now when I laughed about it, and the women that was training are the ones that took issue with him, I stepped out of it because I didn't understand the context. So when we talk about people in business, simply you can't stay in business if you're not making money. Definitely you can't. And the only creatures in this world that value money is who? It's human beings.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first thing is you have to understand the people that value money if you want to get money from them.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
so
true.
to get that money, I had to take a personal interest in the people. I'm a big believer that business is not a transaction. It's a relation building exercise.
Yes.
I need to know you. And if I know you, then you can trust me, because you can't do business with somebody you don't trust.
Yeah, that's true.
And where there is trust, money exchanges very quickly.
And I understand that your services, there was a premium on you being a personal trainer. So they always say when you have got a good product, people are no longer concerned about the price. So how did you get to a point where you could charge a premium compared to other personal trainers?
There's a big difference between price and value.
And value.
You know, value is what the customer gets, price is what you charge. And I'll give you a very good example. I think after COVID, I went to Cape Town. And that's the time when most of the taxi business were going through a very rough time, because we had just like gym business, where we were closed for a very long time. And the guy that was picking me at the airport, he had a big board on Mululu X. And he was dressed in a white, very crisp white shirt, shiny black belt, black pants, shiny black shoes, and very clean cut. And he came, I was said, hello, that's Mululu X is I. We shook hands, he took my bag, he asked me, how was your trip? It's good to have you, I'm taking you to the hotel. And he's, you know, I tell him, no, I'll hold my bag. He says, no, he can't, he insists. So I give him my bags, he walked me outside, and I see him walking me to the cleanest car in the car park, and I'm watching this guy. His car was the cleanest car. I've never seen such a clean car. He puts my bags down, he opens the door, he asks me, sir, please step in. I step in and I'm quiet. He opens the boot, he puts in my bags, then he comes to my side, he asks me, do you want Coke? Do you want water? Do you want juice, or do you want coffee? Now, this is in the car. So I look at this guy, I say, no, I'll have water. Then he takes his cooler box there, he gives me water. Then he asks me, do you read a newspaper? Do you want a Cape Argus or whatever? I say, no. Then he says, last question, do you want music, or do you want a news station? I tell him, no. Then, do you want me to explain to you which areas we are to do some kind of a tour guide as we're going to the hotel, or do you just want to be on your own? Then, you know, I told him, hey, just slow down. What's going on here? What is this? He says, I'm sorry if I've offended you. No, I say, I've never gotten service like that before. What's happening? So we started talking. And this guy said that during COVID, things were so bad. And all other taxi drivers, all they were doing is just complaining. And he says that day he remember reading a story about what do you call it? The bird that goes above the storm.
Don't know if it's an eagle or something.
An eagle.
An eagle, okay.
And he read about an eagle. And when most birds, when there's a very big storm, most birds will always get sucked in and killed.
Yes.
But an eagle will always rise above that. And from that day, he decided I'm an eagle.
Okay.
And he changed. So I asked him, so what is the difference between then and now? He says, I have to switch my phone off. That's how busy I am. Now, this is the same environment, the same person, but what changed? What changed is his mindset.
Yes.
So he started giving value rather than sticking to price. So to come back to your question, most of us, we're too busy chasing new customers, but we're not giving the current customers we have value. There is always more. Because if I tell you, Mr. Mda, this cup is 10 rands, and you give me 10 rands, that's just a business transaction.
Yes.
I haven't gone beyond that.
Yes.
But if it's 10 rands and I give you service beyond 10 rands, so my belief is you should always give more than what the customer pays.
Definitely.
So if the customer pays $500 in the gym, we give them service worth 3,000 rands.
Yeah.
So he will never compare because constantly he knows he's getting a bargain irrespective of what's happening.
No, definitely. I like that. Trim Body Fitness. 12 years later, you open the gym called Trim Body Fitness. Where does the name come from? How did it come about?
In the very beginning, I had Dream Body Fitness on my car 5 years before I opened the gym.
Oh.
I remember even when I was at Morningside, people used to ask me where I had dreambodyfitness.com during that time, and I had registered it as .com, and people were asking me, where is this? Is it a gym? What is that? And I was just doing programs, and I was telling them it's coming. So it took me 5 years in that conceptualized time where I was still working, but my mind I had already created that gym in my mind. And then I remember when I came to Sun Hill, the first time somebody told me about this space, and I came in to talk to the landlord. Of course, he wasn't receptive to it because the people that the previous tenants, which was also one of the big gyms, big chains, had just closed doors. So she wasn't very confident about gyms. So the terms she gave me to acquire the space was just untenable. I was a personal trainer. I could not afford it. I could not afford the deposit she wanted. I could not afford the sureties she wanted and all those things. So I asked her, I remember coming to the office a couple of times, and I was coming in between customers because I was coming in my uniform. And I think that's one of the worst things. It's a business mistake I learned later. Always act as if. Don't come in your current state because always portray the picture the way you want. You have the narrative you have the power to make people see you the way you want them to see you. And I was coming in my gym uniform, and that didn't give her a lot of confidence. So I remember I came 2-3 times, and she says she's too busy. She can't see me. Then I kept on coming, and I think out of desperation to kick me out, she said, what is it that you want? And we spoke, and I told her that. And I remember I asked her if I can have the key to go look at the gym. And I remember I kept those keys for almost a month. I didn't return them. And it was intentional. It was intentional because any time I didn't have customers, I wanted to come and just sit in the gym and visualize. So I was coming in that gym after work in the evening, in between customers. I just sit there and I can hear the music. I can see people filing in reception. I can see people training. And it started taking root in my mind first before we opened the facility.
Wow. No, I see that. So, and I remember talking to you once when you were opening this, and you had a vision to say Sunning Hill is one of the fastest growing places with the businesses. If I look now, there's offices that used to be PwC, big offices that have been converted into flats, and I'm sure most of those probably come and train at your gym. So just share with us in terms of how did you then, in transitioning from being a personal trainer now being a gym owner, what were the things you had to learn quickly and be able to do in running the gym, including the marketing?
I mean, business is simply about overcoming challenges. You know, the challenges I had then are totally different from the challenges I have now. I don't think you can be in business if you're not solving challenges. The constant. I mean, at the very beginning, I was coming from a background or a business where it was a one-man operation. I work with you and you pay me that money. I just invoice you and you do that. And then transitioning into this, I had to become a multiplicity of professionals. I had to learn how to negotiate, to read a lease. I had to learn how to negotiate a lease. I had to learn how to negotiate with the banks. I had to learn how to negotiate with the equipment people. I had to learn how to hire staff. I'm coming from where I didn't have staff. I had to learn how to manage staff. I had to learn things like payroll. So I came from that, and all of a sudden it was I was thrown into the deep end. But one of the things that will never go away, I think we live in an environment and culture where in the business world, in the professional world, people talk a lot about IQ, intelligence quotient. People talk about EQ, emotional quotient. But very few people talk about AQ, adaptability quotient. You have to have the ability to adapt very quickly. Because things change. Business is changing very quickly. If I look at the business now and the business we started, it's not the same. People are consuming fitness in a very different way. Fitness is oversaturated now, so you have to differentiate yourself. Gym has never been as cheap as it is now. Now we can't compete on price, because if we compete on price, we don't have the numbers. It will. So we have to completely change how we service people and our service offering.
I want to ask how you've differentiated yourself, because maybe it's a competitive advantage against other gyms. But one of the things we see in business is that when someone gets promoted from an old role into a new role, they struggle to delegate to the people below. Now for you, all of the people coming to the gym were your clients. Now, because you're busy owning the gym, you can't be in charge of the training programs and running this. How easy was it to delegate to the guys you're trained to work in the gym?
In the beginning, you can't work on the business if you're working in the business. And I think it's a transition we all struggle with. And one of the things I've come to learn is you can't grow and retain control. So you have to divorce yourself from some things. As you say, the power of delegation. You have to have a great team. You have to have people that you have to be a good communicator first, you yourself. Because if you're not communicating proper with people, they keep on doing the wrong things. You blame them, but your instructions were not clear. So your chain of command in terms of communication has to be crystal clear. And one of my favorite questions right now, anybody I talk to, what did I say? Because I want them to repeat it in their understanding. I don't want. What did I say? And the minute they repeat it in their own words, but they're saying the same thing, then I know I've communicated. But if they're saying something else totally from you, and they have to pass that message to somebody else, now it's already lost. When the end product is not going to be the same.
No, it's good to check. So you're then running this gym. How many years now have you been running?
12 years.
12 years. Oh, so it's 12 years there.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's a 12-year cycle that you keep on changing and reinventing yourself. So after 12 years, you then decide that and I think whilst you were running the gym, you were already starting to do motivational talks. Where does that come from, maybe before we come to the trim spaces?
I don't think you can do personal training if you just focus on the physicality. You know, there's a lot of facets. A human being is a commonwealth. A human being is a multiplicity of lives. You know, my mantra is you have to be physically energized. You have to be emotionally connected. You have to be mentally focused and spiritually aligned to a cause bigger than self. So if I'm focused just on gym, becomes easier for me to bring people closer because it's tangible.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody wants to lose weight, if somebody is suffering from arthritic pain, if something has a lifestyle impediment like diabetes, it's easy for them to understand how you're going to help them. Then when you've brought them in there at a lower level, it's easier to make them understand how their emotions affect their body, and then move them to the next chain to understand how their body and how their emotions affect their cognitive fitness, and then how their spirituality. So that is the lowest level that you can get people and they can relate to. But if you go to a man and tell him, you know, I think you've got mental issues, he won't. He's not going to respond to that. You know, they don't.
That's true. So, what's next for you then now? 12 years cycle has passed again. You've been here. I remember you called me one time to say, come and see these facilities. And I know I used to facilitate some strategy sessions in here, which used to be called the focus rooms in there. So you had the foresight to take this big space that was not being used. What's your vision for this big space you've taken over?
You know, if you look, the way we live as South Africans, we don't live well. I mean, South Africa, I think South Africa has so many challenges, but also South Africa has so many opportunities. I mean, but we do not expect people to live better until we teach them how to think better.
Think better.
That is our biggest problem. If you're asking people to live better, you have to show them how. And everything starts with thought. And if you look at the way we are as a country, you'll find there's a lot of high performance centers for medical doctors. High performance center for physiotherapists. That's true. High performance center for sports people and all these things. But there's no high performance center for mental health. There's no high performance center for, and that's why my point of this place now, we call it Dream Spaces. And the tagline is where your dreams come true. We need now to teach people how to think. Now it all goes back to the gym downstairs. Downstairs, we're getting people in from the lowest level, which is physical. And you'll find one of the differentiating factors for us, you asked me there earlier, is most of your big gyms, your big box gyms, they get a big warehouse, buy the best equipment, and you pay a fee to have access to those equipment. So they are in the gym equipment leasing business. Right? My business is totally different because I'm in the health business. You can be fit but not be healthy. But you can't be healthy and not be fit. And that's our biggest differentiator. I focus in you as a customer to make sure that whatever promise I gave you in the beginning, I have to have a support system to make sure that you do what? That you achieve your goals. Why is that important to me? The big gyms have access to Discovery Vitality. Discovery Vitality roughly has 2 million members. So the big gyms have access to those people as a feeder. That's a lead generation tool. I don't have access to that. So whatever promise I made to you when you joined me, I have to fulfill it. Because if I lose you, it's too expensive to go get somebody else. But if I keep you, it's easier to bring your wife in. It's easier to bring your child in because you become my marketing tool.
Okay, so it becomes a captive market. So in these Dream Spaces, then you are now taking it to the next level. So if we look at what you've done with Dream Spaces, come 12 years later, what would success look like? To say when you took a leap of faith to open Dream Spaces,
so this is crystal clear. We're reading a crystal ball, and I'm throwing you the end product. The end product. This is a Dream Hub, Dream Spaces. We've got a group of 15 very, very qualified, strong coaches that are varying in different things, you know, from money, relationships, mental health, physical health, nutrition, and all those things. We have all those things, and we have a center where we can have events, where we have big workshops for people come in. We have public workshops. If somebody is looking for a trainer, they can come have a trainer here. The trainers here have their own private rooms where they can do their own personal coaching. We have a place where anybody that is out there that wants to succeed. It's more like a mastermind group. You can come in here and you can rent a workspace from here, but in an environment where people are cheering for you, where people are holding you accountable to make sure that you achieve those goals.
Sure. So I know I can't talk to you without talking about your love for dogs. And I know some of us, we like to make the jokes to say, you know, us black men and dogs are not the best of friends, but I've seen your dog, it's quite friendly, and I had to get used to it. Where does your love for dog come from?
If you read, if you spell the word dog backwards,
Yeah.
spell it, God.
Yeah, God.
God. So there's no, you know, we always joke when they say a dog is a man's best friend. People, I think we underestimate how lonely we are as men. And especially any man 40 plus, any man 50 plus, a lot of men are very lonely. But it's one of those things that people don't talk about. Now, for me, a dog has been one of those things that, one, it grounds me. One, it gives me the, it's a very compassionate love that you can't really talk about, which I think as men we lack. It's one thing that grounds me to nature, because it forces me, whether I like it or not, whether it's winter or whether it's summer. I have to wake up at 4 in the morning and take him to the park. It's just good to see him enjoy nature.
Yes.
See him swim in the river, chase the ducks and chase the rabbits. Every 45 minutes or every 1 hour, I have to go get off my desk and take him out to pee. And so he creates a very good working rhythm, a very good working rhythm for me. And there is one thing I've learned from him, which I more or less apply in my life. Anything that he can't eat, anything that he cannot play with, he pisses on it and he walks away. And it's a very good mantra for life.
Okay, I'll try and remember that in my life. So I now remember at some point this year, and you called me and you said God decided to recalibrate your brain. And you were and I took it lightly the way you're putting it. You're in hospital, and I know they say we human beings use, I don't know the stats, whether it's less than 20% or probably around 30% of the brain power. And now probably God decided that you are overusing yours more than the rest of us. He needs to go and install more RAM and ROM. IT guys would understand it better. And I came to visit you to the hospital, and I didn't know what to expect, because I'm thinking it's going to be open head and the guy is struggling. When I get in there to the hospital, it's the hospital room that you're in is full of nurses. They are enjoying themselves. You're bringing joy, and I'm thinking, this Parker is saying he's being treated, but he's having the time of his life. But also, because hospitals are depressing places, the people working there, sometimes they can be depressed, and you just brought in all that joy. And immediately after the operation, you didn't even take a break. You came in back to work and to power on. Just tell us about that experience of going through that recalibration of the brain.
You know what? Our lives are defined by the obstacles we overcome, and every single man is going through something. You know, there is no single man that has no battle, and I will always say that different levels, different devils. We all get tested in different ways, and you can never be a testimony until you've been tested. You know, and if I look at that, I think it was one of the most testing parts in my life. It filled me at one point. I was very riddled with fear, because at one point I thought maybe I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, maybe I'm going to end up a vegetable. You know, there was all this mirage of negativity. You know, one day I'm in heaven, the next day I'm in hell, and all those things. But my peace only came when I reached a certain point where I had to focus on what I can control. You know, because my fear was always what happens next. You know, what happens if they're saying I'm going for another op? Because it was three big ops in 6 weeks. So every time they're telling me they're going to open my head, now I think maybe I won't come out of anesthesia. What happens if the doctor is too tired? What happens if I forget something in my head? What happens if the bleeding doesn't stop? And I decided, hey, I have no control. If that happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But right now, what are the things I can do? Anything that I can still do, I'm going to do. And I remember the doctor coming in on the third day, and I was trying to convince the nurses that one, I want to go to the loo. So the nurses say, no, but you have to pee in this thing. We're not sure. But I told her, you know what? I'm alive. I want to do what living people do. You know, even if it takes me forever, and if you have to hold me, I don't mind. I have the whole day. Where am I going? But I want to go pee there. If I can get to that loo. And one thing also I never missed meals. Because when people are eating, you say, the message I'm sending to my brain is I want to be alive.
Okay.
But if I stop eating, and I remember the guy that was very next to me, he was in ICU for so long, and he was on life support. When I got there, he had been there for 6 weeks, and he had just came out of it, but he wasn't eating. And I remember walking to him and starting eating competition with him. And I remember he always calls me, and the one thing he remembers from our conversation was told him, eat or be eaten. If you don't eat, the substance will eat you. So what do you decide? So we had a bet, whatever he eats, I'm going to eat double. And that's how he started eating. Yeah.
And I mean, I know, talking about eating, I remember your meals when you were at the Virgin Active. Probably your breakfast was how many eggs?
At that point, when I was at my biggest, 150 kilos, I used to eat and drink on average of 60 eggs a day.
Sure. So you're lucky, because this didn't happen now. You can imagine there's a shortage of eggs in the country. They probably would have restricted you. So Rulef Botha, he's the chief steward of Sequoia Capital, which is a fancy term for CEO, but they want to show that they are is in the service. So he's actually, as the CEO, he's there to serve the people that he's look after. He likes to talk about crucible moments, which define and change someone. If you care to share from your side, what are the top 3 crucible moments that have taken you to the Steve that we know?
Mine are more internal than they are external. And I think quickly, just to catch this, one of the things I had to change is my mindset. You know, I remember when I left the village and I came to the city, and in the city it was more or less very hard for you to make it unless you have all these qualifications. And I don't have any qualifications at all. I don't have any tertiary or certification I can show people and tell them that I did this. And in the very beginning, it used to work against me, you know. It made me shy, and I couldn't express myself. And in not expressing myself, I was never myself. And in not being myself, I was always a Hong Kong to the world. So I never gave the best, the best of me. And I remember the very first moment that came in is when I realized not everybody that is educated makes it in life, you know. And it took me back to the scriptures where we're talking about the talent of the parable of the talent, where Jesus talks about the businessman that had 3 servants, and he gave one, just using today's terminology, where he gave one 3 million, another one 2 million, one 1 million. And when he came back, the one for 3 million had invested 3 million and he had gotten 6. The one for 2 million had invested, he had gotten 4. And the one that was left with 1 million, he said, "You are very hard man. I was afraid if I invest your money and it gets lost, you're going to kill me. I buried it." And the master looked at him and said, "You stupid man." And he took the 1 million and he spread it among these 2. So I realized, I don't have everything, but I have something. You know, what is that something? Because that something is what the world needs. And that's when I realized at that point that my biggest strength at that point was my physical strength. And it's only later on, my second defining moment, when I realized I have a very undeveloped mind. If I can invest a lot of time in growing my mind, the same way I invest in growing my muscles, it doesn't matter how long it will take, but my mind is not it's not developed. And readers are leaders. I started consistently reading. I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I was listening to people, and as the more I read, the more I exposed myself to people with different, better views, the better my life became. And the third moment for me was the power of communication.
Yes.
And this came more after I had come in to start the business here. I realized that money is an exchange of value. That's what I knew in the very beginning, but I had never understood that value comes at different levels. You know, so in the very beginning, I was operating at the lowest level, and the lowest level is physical.
Yes.
You know, if you're a physical person, a physical laborer, a personal trainer, you're exchanging value, but at a very low level. So I had to push it to the second level when I came here, and the second level is management, where I have to learn how do I multiply myself into these people. And right now, I'm leaning towards the second and the last one here, where communication is a very big asset in business. And you find a movie star, a guy, just by talking, they pay him 100 million. Just being able to communicate. A car salesman, he sells a Ferrari for 10 million, he makes 5% just from talking. So, and as a black person, that was a part of me that was never developed. And then the one that I know I need to develop is mindset. Ideas are here. I need to learn to bring these ideas out. So there's a lot of billions in here that are just waiting to come out. I just need to know how to get them out.
Definitely. When you're ready to share them, we're ready to receive those billions. I think lastly, I'm aware of the time. It's a busy time, and I appreciate this. As we close off, Steve, you're talking about communication. So two things then. When is a book coming out from all these ideas that are sitting in here? And if you were to give a message of hope, we are in tough times as South Africans. Fuel is up, the interest rates are at their highest, everything is at the worst that it could be. What would be a message of hope to South Africans?
My message of hope here is, I think as black people, I'm going to talk to us black people specifically, we come from an environment where we were never taught how to use our minds. Our biggest problem is, as much as things you can only live life at the level of your thinking, and we haven't invested a lot of our time in thinking, and most of us that have invested a lot of time reading, we're going to read purely to work. So we just need to change that mindset where we have to start studying to solve problems. We shouldn't be chasing degrees for the sake of hanging them on our walls, but we have to look at what problems our society has and how do we read books or come up with ideas as solution.
Sure. And when is the book coming out?
Soon.
Soon. Okay. No, Steve, I want to thank you for your time, man.
Thanks, Slings.
I appreciate this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you don't stand with the height. At least I look like a giant now standing over you. Thanks, man.